What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football and Sports Talk Radio. I'm going to be your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers. And joining me, like he did last week, did a great job. And we brought him on back for the Big 12 Weekly Roundup. And of course, game previews, our second episode as we head into week 6 and reflect on week 5 for the 4 games we have here. We picked 4 games. There's 4 quarters in football. We picked some good ones this week. We're excited to talk about it. And Brandon, you're telling me pregame, just in the back here, you got perfect score on your first episode. So I know you're hoping to carry on that momentum and go a perfect 8-0 after 2 weeks.
Right, 4-0 so far, and I mean I felt good about my picks, and I like the matchups we've got this week too. There's some good football to be played.
Yeah, really just kind of 2 outliers last week in terms of scores, but overall as a conference, a lot of tight matchups. We'll talk more about it here in just a minute, obviously. But before we do kind of break down these games and talk about the previews and predictions and players and whatnot, guys, if you enjoy the episode, please, of course, like, comment, share, and subscribe. We go live each and every single week, not just this show, but many other shows here, talking legends, talking to former players, former coaches, just talking about history and anything, all football related content, whether it be NCAA, high school occasionally, of course, the NFL. So we got a little bit of everything for you here on the channel. Football season is in full swing. We're glad it's back, and we are back here once again with our Big 12 weekly roundup and game preview. So without further ado, let's get into our first game we're going to talk about, and that is going to be a Friday night kick. It's going to be at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're off work on Saturday, you get to stay up and watch some Big 12 football. That's going to be between the West Virginia Mountaineers and the now number 23 ranked BYU Cougars. BYU comes into this game ranked perfect 4-0. West Virginia 2-3, and also 0-2 in the Big 12 action. Brandon, I know, before we talk more about West Virginia, obviously we know they faced your team last week, these Utes. And how did that go for you as a fan? And talk about more so your team first, how you thought they looked, and then flip over to West Virginia, how you think they can improve against the Cougars this week.
I mean, I feel like we looked good. They did kind of what I said. They came right out, were passing right down the field, and they immediately tried to, establish a more vertical passing game because that, was the main thing lacking in the Tech game. Which I think we did. We did a good job getting. I mean, Davis was reliable in the routes we had him run in the Texas Tech game. They were just short routes, and it seemed like we extended them, and he was, he proved to be reliable. He had a really deep, nice deep touchdown pass, kind of a deep crosser over the middle, and Dampier hit him in stride, and that was just good to see because that was what was the biggest thing lacking. In that regard. And they got back to dominating in the trenches, which in my prediction, as I said, I didn't see anything from West Virginia that told me that they were going to, do what Texas Tech did to us by any means. But yeah, we got on track. Dallin Bentley got involved. I mean, Dampier comes out. I think he ended up four TDs and 1 interception. And the 1 interception, you would have liked to have back, but I like the aggressiveness there, and I almost wonder had the guy he was throwing to not have gone out of bounds, would he have like made more of an aggressive attempt to go up for the catch? Because it almost looked like to me once he realized he was out of bounds, he turned and kind of gave up on it because it's like I touch it, it's a penalty. So I think he was hoping the other guy behind him was going to make a play on it because there were kind of two wide receivers in that area. But like I said, I'll take the aggressiveness. With 4 picks, 1 interception, can't complain on that. And defense got after it like it did. John Henry Daly, he was looking like one of the best defensive linemen in the country through now 4 weeks of football. I don't think that's even being like a homer. Yeah, I'm a Utes fan, but I can call it like I see it. And I even mentioned because all the money Texas Tech had on their D line, and the best D lineman in that game was John Henry Daly. So I'm excited to see his growth. As far as on the West Virginia side, did they find their quarterback? Because Khalil Wilkins, that dude came in there and he became an instant problem. We had everybody else for the majority shut down. But he was, I mean, he instantly was, making plays with his feet. He had that deep pass. I don't want to say broken coverage because the guy still had to go make the play too, but he had that nice deep ball. So I kind of wondered. And then as soon as they pulled him and went to their third, like my dad was like, "Oh, we got through another quarterback," and I was like, "Actually, I think they're protecting who they just found as their starting quarterback." At least from what I saw, Khalil Wilkins looked like the best quarterback for that West Virginia put out there, in my opinion.
I know, yeah,
And
man.
then,
Sorry, just real quick. Whenever I saw you look at the box score for West Virginia in the passing department. I mean, Brandon, I had to make sure we were in the right year. 6 of 13 as a team. Only
yeah,
13 pass attempts. I mean, hell, you get some quarterbacks that throw that in a quarter.
I think I'm gonna credit the pass rush for Utah. They started dropping back, but then they realized that they weren't holding up, and I mean they started moving the pocket, and I mean doing a lot more run and more, I would say more read option than anything. And that's where, like I said, I thought Khalil executed it better. But yeah, agreed. I was like, I think they only passed, 13 attempts between the two of them. But like I said, Khalil at least he put one in the end zone, and he provided spark to the team at the end when, realistically he could have come in and just ran the offense. You know what I mean? So I give him credit, and that's why I was kind of like, as quickly as they pulled him, as good as he was, I was like, they're protecting him now, because if there's a similar team to Utah, it's BYU who you play next week. So you hope did they figure some things out that way? Cam Vaughn was pretty impressive. I think he's one of the ones that had the touchdown. But I know he's their touchdown leader as far as wide receivers. And then who was it? It was Nick Taylor, I believe, or no, it was Lewis that had the interception on us. So I think they need more playmakers on defensive side. That was kind of one thing I noticed lacking wise, is that, I mean, they were all right, but there wasn't anybody that you had to game plan around. So whether who it be, they need someone else to step up on that side.
Yeah, and when I saw, I mean, the one I would say bright side, and obviously you saw the game, it was against your team. The one thing the one big takeaway I think for West Virginia that they can build off of, that if they want to win this game against of course, a game BYU team, Brandon, is they have to keep the running game potent like it was against Utah. They look great in the running game. That was the only department really they won at, right, in terms of any statistical category. 48 carries, 261 yards, just the lone touchdown, as you mentioned, on the ground, one through the air by Khalil Wilkins. But, I mean, feels like everyone run the damn ball. They have about 50. If you look at the stat sheet, there's about 9 guys in there that has a carry. So, I mean, obviously they've got a lot of packages, a lot of plays designed to just kind of, in a way, tire out the opposing defense, because, like I said, the guys are running. They're going to be exerting a lot more energy trying to chase them down. But that's what works for them right now at this point in time, as they try and get more comfortable. Like I said, looks like they might have got a quarterback honed in finally, halfway through the season nearly. But I think that is something you have to keep going off of if you're West Virginia. I also, too, they, both of you guys, Utah as well as West Virginia, tied for tackles for loss. You each had 5. West Virginia just was not able to get to the quarterback, no sacks on the day. So they did prove that, they can get back there. It wasn't just, they laid a goose egg. But those are some of the kind of the main takeaways. But obviously, look, you're giving up 48 points. Your defense is your number one cause for concern right now.
You gotta win. That's where you gotta win in the trenches, because that's where it all started.
That's it, yeah. And like I said, they got the one interception. I mean, it was just one of those where it just, he got it and he fell down. He didn't go anywhere. It wasn't a pick six. It wasn't like he returned it for 40 yards or whatever. But hopefully that you can start turning some of those turnovers right into points. They would kind of build some momentum. So West Virginia, I think it's going to be an uphill battle. But I think that, like I said, I think that they'll have some bright moments, but I don't know if they can couple it all together at this point in time. But let's talk about the Cougars, though, Brandon. Let's talk about BYU. Currently ranked number 23 in the nation, I believe. And when you look at them, they beat Colorado last week. Close one, that one, 24-21. So, they beat them, but it wasn't like it was a blowout by any means necessary. Let's talk about that game, what you saw from BYU, what you liked, and maybe what they can improve on this upcoming week.
A little bit of tell of, I want to say 2 halves, but I think they got punched in the mouth a little bit. and no other teams this year had actually tried to challenge them up to this point. So it was more so about how they recovered. And to me, I was pretty impressed. Actually, I was going to say they're ranked 23, and it deservedly so. Bear showed that against a little adversity and things not going his way at first, that he could get it back on track and lead him down the stretch to squeak out that victory. I really thought they would have done more, but I think that's more credit to Colorado. They showed up. They showed up as well. But yeah, Bear, he just continues to develop like you want to see from a freshman. Chase Roberts is a problem. I was even seeing even not, I guess I didn't see the stats completely, but it didn't seem like whoever they were putting over him, whether it was McKinley or anybody else, he was getting open for him in clutch points. So I gotta give props to that. I think he just hit his 2,000 yards too. I saw that, so I I saw the machine keep on rolling, but also, like I said, I really saw them overcome some adversity, which you want to see your team do that because we all know football's not always smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
So credit to them on that, and their defense, the stays consistent is where it's at. I love watching Jack Kelly running around back there. Evan Johnson kind of jumped out at me. He's starting to prove himself as like a corner you can leave on an island with their best wide receiver, and expect it. Like at Utes, I would call him the eraser, but it erases the one option with your cornerback one option. So I was definitely impressed by at least them rallying back and coming back with as far as the resilient effort. I really thought they'd put more on it, but I think there's a lot on tape you can go learn from it because they needed to be challenged.
Yeah, and with BYU, the first quarter they gave up 14. That was the highest scoring quarter for any team, right? 14-3 after one. And then BYU, they closed the gap a little bit. It was 14-10 at halftime. So like I say, you were in striking distance. Wasn't like it was completely, a wild comeback or anything like that. But obviously, I think what really changed it was, they tied it up in the third quarter. Or they got even close in the third. They each got 7 points on the board. And then they shut them out again in the fourth. So you shut them out at halftime, second going into half, and then in the final quarter. So credit to the defense for stepping up big. And like I said, the offensive weapons, you mentioned Bear Bachmeier. Good day throwing the ball, good day running the ball as well. 15 carries, 98 yards. Average 6.5, just, scrambling, getting some first downs. Didn't get in the end zone, but still broke off a 16-yard run at one point. So he looked good there. LJ Martin, a solid.
The other guy had down.
Yeah, a reliable, running back, 3.9 yards per carry. But you have to have something like that. You want to see, obviously, a little bit more, but it breaks up the monotony, right? It breaks up just throwing the ball. So it's nice to have that kind of change of pace. You mentioned Chase Roberts had a good day, Carson Ryan as well. Parker Kingston as well got in some of the work. I think the real kind of telling fact here was the O-line didn't give up any sacks. That was huge. And the defense put in some good work as well. They had 3 sacks on the day. They had 4 tackles for loss, had the 1 pick from Glasgow. So they were looking good. They looked very, you're going to have games regardless of what team you are, regardless of your ranking, that it's going to test you, right? It's going to be a lot closer than it should be. And we know that Colorado's got some good players on that side. There's no question about that. They fall to 2-3 with the loss, 0-2 in Big 12 play, but you see that they're kind of starting to piece it together as well, with the mass exodus of players they had this past draft. But they're getting back to a good form here. And like I said, it was a good test against the Cougars, but BYU comes out on top. Brandon, let's get your predictions for this one. West Virginia, BYU, 10:30 kick on Friday night. Who you rolling with?
I've got BYU. I think they keep it rolling 31-17. Like I said, I think West Virginia kind of found a few things in Wilkins, so they're going to explore and see what his abilities are this week, and if they can, keep rolling off kind of that back half of the Utes game, what they were doing offensively. I think they've got, they can bring it in this game, but I think BYU gets away, gets probably a turnover or so, that maybe even a defensive score, and just kind of outlasts them and pulls away in the end.
For me, I'm going to go somewhat of a similar score, not the exact, but I'm going to go final score for me, BYU remains undefeated on the year. Let me give them 34. And West Virginia, I got them putting up the exact same score as 14. So 20-point difference for me. But we still both got the Cougars taking home the win on Friday night. It's also going to be at home for them as well, by the way. So got the home field there. All right, next game we got up here on the docket. We got a good one here. We got Texas Tech traveling to Houston, facing off against the Cougars. Brandon, let's talk about Texas Tech and what you like about that ball club, man. They got some good players over there, and I know they're game for this one.
Well, I mean, last time, of course, we saw them in action was versus Utah, and heck of a game that was. I got to give my hats off to them because Utah still looks like a pretty solid team based on getting back on track versus West Virginia. So you got to give credit to the opponent that caused the trouble, and the 10-point held us to 10 points in that game. So their defense came to play for sure. I kind of wonder what quarterback they're going to rock with. I know Morton's the senior, but Hammond looked better as far as moving the ball and scoring. I don't know if it's because he got, at the end he did get, garbage time as well. But I hadn't heard or checked on health wise, but that was kind of one thing I noticed is, or maybe it's credit to the system that, plug and play, whatever quarterback's in there, they're still going to call the same play. I love that mentality. It's truly next man up, not next man up while we go super conservative.
Yeah.
But, and then, man, Dickey, he was consistent in the run game. We were bottling him up initially, and then he was unable. I mean, the Utes had him, controlled through most of the game, and then he started getting out. In credit to, especially when Hammond brought additional rush threat, it seemed like that's when it kind of opened up there in the back half of the game. And then Eakin, I look for him to get a bounce back game. He didn't have as big of an impact. He's their leading wide receiver, but I think that's kind of a credit to the matchup with him and Snowden. Like Snowden was on him quite a bit, and they didn't go his way a lot. And it was actually Benny Jackson that had that interception against him too. He carried him to the end zone and had that pick in the end zone. So I expect, like I said, a bounce back game from him on that side. But I mean, they were more resilient because that game, the score wasn't indicative of how the game went. It was, it was a battle of resiliency until the end, and then they pulled away, and when they noticed blood in the water, they went after it. So credit to them, on that, and they are definitely the cream of the crop as far as Big 12 right now.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the standings, and obviously Texas Tech, by the way, ranked number 11 in the nation. So they are, at this point in time, a top 12 team making it to the playoffs. So keep that in mind. Like I said, we're going into week 6, so we still got plenty of time, but just kind of a look at where we're at now. But with Texas Tech, like I said, they're one of the few, as well as Houston. There's 5 teams undefeated right now in the Big 12, and after Saturday night, this isn't going to be the case. Only one of these teams is going to stand tall. So we're going to get a little bit of movement here in the standings between 2 solid programs. Like I said, Texas Tech, they were off last week after they beat Utah 34-10. Unfortunately, I know for you, but the one thing that you touched on it too.
Football.
It's football. That's how it goes. Yeah, but I think that Texas Tech might be one of the more balanced teams in the nation in terms of they don't have a whole lot of weak points, man. They look solid pretty much all over. Like I said, Morton's looked good on the year, 11 tutties, 3 interceptions, over 1,000 yards as well. Very good completion percentage, nearly 70%. So he looks good there. The running game can get it done as well in bunches. They have a lot of really talented receivers. Eakin's their top, 14 grabs, 3 touchdowns on the year. Bailey, their top linebacker, 3.5 sacks for that young man. And Rodriguez developed a great mustache. He's got 28 tackles on the year leading the team. So,
and I want to say Rodriguez is the one too that on two early drives, it was Rodriguez and that's what's right here. It was Rodriguez and Roberts had the 2 peanut punches on Parker and Davis, and those were, we were getting points on those drives depending what, but those were, we were moving with momentum and still seemed like it was moving with an aggressive approach, and those were drive killers because I think he turned one of them into points, but it, like I said, it stalled our offense, and then almost resulted us being super conservative from there.
Yeah, but they, like I said, Texas Tech looked great against Utah. They've looked good all season. They haven't really had any challenges up to this point. I mean, they've been beating their opponents pretty handily. But let's talk more about Houston here. Underdog in this one, looking at just the matchup predictor, they think it's going to be swinging 75% in Texas Tech's favor. Talk about these Cougars, right? Because I mean, they've got a good lineup, but like I said, they in the close games, right? The games that have been more competitive, they beat Colorado by 16. And then they barely edged out Oregon State 27-24. Mm-hmm. And that, hey, they can say, tip of the cap to them. They're the ones that got Mike Gundy fired. So they can hold that in their cap for this season. But give me the rundown here with Houston, man. Obviously, Connor Wegman's their quarterback. But what do you like about this Houston team and if they can pull off an upset this week?
So starting with Connor, he's kind of streaky because he started out a little bit slow, and that's why they got behind real early. I think they were down, what was it, like 24-10? And then it seemed like he slowly kind of started finding a rhythm. Their running back, Tyree Walker, he started finding some lanes. And so like once they started getting things going, it seemed like that's where I was like, they're streaky, because once they got it on, they were able to lead that comeback, and then couple bounces of the ball lucked out as far as blocking that kick at the end was impressive. But that's just the will to want to win a football game, because when I was watching, I seen them line it up. I was like, I'm like, Oregon State's got this. It wasn't a relatively long kick, and so them stepping up, blocking it, and then winning it in overtime. It proves resiliency, but it's kind of two sides how they came out, and then when they, I want to say, adjusted as far as game plan, because I was impressed with their comeback. It's not the greatest or most quality opponent, but you also don't want to put a loss to Oregon State. So credit to them for finding a way to win.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And I think with Houston, like I said, they're perfect 4-0, but this is some stiff competition here. Like I said, top 12 team in the nation, number 11 in Texas Tech, who have steamrolled everyone. You got to have pretty much a flawless game, I think, if you're Houston. You got to kind of get lucky. You got to get some turnovers, right? You got to get some sacks, some strip sacks, interceptions. Also, too, I think
and you got to capitalize on those. You got to make the turnovers, and you got to turn them into points.
Yeah, and I think, too, there's two ways to go about it. You can either play the possession game, right, and hold on for dear life and have long drives and maybe kind of, slowly beat them down, or maybe get some explosion in there. Get those, quick 2-3 yard drives, but you toss it for 70 yards for a touchdown. Like this, it's going to be in Houston, so you are going to be at home, which does help, but that also could be a factor too, because college, more so than anywhere, the home crowd, they're out for you, right? And I mean, we just saw this past week.
It's the environment.
Yep, we saw this past week, with Florida State losing to Virginia. No one saw that coming, but
yeah,
this could, I think, maybe be up there for an upset of the week. But let's get your thoughts on it. Give me your final score. Does Texas Tech keep rolling, or does Houston pull off another big upset this year?
Before I jump to that too, I wanted to shout out Carlos Allen Jr. on Houston. He's a D lineman leading the team in total tackles. I love, I'd like to see quality D line play, and anytime you're in, getting in the play that much, I love to see that from a guy. So it'll be big on how they can hold up in the trenches. That'll be the number one thing. If they just get dominated by Tech, this game's not close. But if Houston can hold up there and kind of turn it into a shootout, if you will, they've got the firepower. Steven Johnson, and then the Tanner, the Kazal. That kind of combo they have the firepower to go shoot out. It'll just be, can they do it against the level of Texas Tech defense? I don't think so. I'd like to see it, but I got Texas Tech pulling it out 35-20 over Houston.
I think Houston's going to match them early, right? Because you're going to have the home crowd behind you. You're going to be amped up. Obviously, big game. Two Texas teams going at it as well, which is always going to be fun to watch. But I think that Texas Tech is just kind of on a different level right now. If they're an A-level team, Houston's a B in terms of just the ranking, the power rankings, in my opinion. Also, like I said, Texas Tech number 11, Houston, they are undefeated, but still not ranked yet. So that does, play a factor, obviously, in voters' minds and everything. But if they can pull off an upset here, then obviously that'll catapult them into top 25 somewhere. However, I think I am going to roll with the Red Raiders in this one. They've looked too good so far. I don't have a reason to pick against them at this moment. There's not there's not a glaring weakness to their game that I've seen. So for that reason, give me Texas Tech. I'll go a little bit of a higher score in this one. Give me 40 for the Red Raiders. And for Houston, I'll go 28 just because I think you're going to see a lot of offense. Maybe the defense is going to have a little bit of an off day just because it's going to be a hostile, great environment with the fans there. But I still think Texas Tech will get the dominant win nonetheless. Once again, 7 o'clock kick in Houston. All right, talking more about ranked teams, and Big 12's loaded with them this year. Man, we got Iowa State, number 14 in the nation, perfect 5-0, taking on the Bearcats in Cincinnati at Nippert Stadium. How are we liking this one? Cincinnati likes a 3-1, not too bad on the year, but Iowa State, kind of in the same way, they've looked really solid this year overall. But what do you like about the Cyclones? Let's talk about them first before we move over to the Bearcats.
It all starts with Rocco Becht. He's playing some pretty good football. He's taking care of the football. He's distributing it, getting it around. Like, I wouldn't say he exactly has still a favorite target, but looks like his tight end's becoming his top kind of red zone target. Leading the team in touchdowns, at the moment. I think that's Ben Brahmer. Yeah, that would be the top tight end. And then it seems like they've got kind of the running back by committee with Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. So it's been, like I said, they've been consistent on offense, it seems like. What's kind of surprising the last game is their defense showed up. So I think, that could be maybe I'm going to say the biggest difference in this game. I kind of see it more shootout-ish because that's exactly how Cincinnati went with Kansas. But maybe a turnover late is going to be kind of the difference.
Yeah, very well could. But like I said, Iowa undefeated on the year. They've had some close calls, right? But, the Iowa game, they won by, I believe, 3 there. But they still pulled out nonetheless. Rocco Becht still looks solid, over 1,100 yards on the season, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One way, though, Cincinnati can get in the ball game, right, can remain competitive. Rocco has been sacked 8 times on the year, which isn't a super high amount, but that's still a pretty
shows weakness.
It does show weakness in Iowa State as opposed to what we just talked about with Texas Tech. But I think Iowa State, like I said, they kind of mix and match, right? They don't really have kind of that go-to target. You mentioned, they have Brahmer, their tight end, but there's a lot of guys on this team. I think 5 or 6 at the moment that have over 100 yards receiving. A lot of those guys have
it's well distributed.
Touchdown. Yeah, you don't know where the ball's going, right? They have, I see 4 guys with over 10 plus catches so far. So if you're Cincinnati, man, if you're those corners and if you're linebackers, you got to be on your toes. You don't know. There's not a true kind of wide receiver one, because that's just how Rocco plays. He looks at all his options, which that's what I want from a quarterback. Honestly, I want someone who is, like I said, if you get the star receiver in the NFL and whatnot, sure, go for him. But I think especially kind of in college and kind of teams like Iowa State, right, that don't get, they're not the Alabamas or the Georgias of the world. They're not going to get those type of monsters. They're going to get some good guys, of course, obviously.
It's something to be said about taking what the defense gives you. And being able to play like that makes you hard to defend because there's no, here's your go-to guy or this is what you like to do in this tendency. It's like, if you show this, they'll do that. And that's, I agree with you, exactly what you want out of a quarterback, which is why I said it all starts with Beck.
Yeah, and they have, good options all around. The running game, pretty solid as well. Hansen averages 4.3 yards a carry. You mentioned Sama, he got 4.2, so a good kind of 1-2 combo right there. To give Rocco a break from throwing the ball.
Right.
And like I said, the defense looked good as well. 8 sacks on the year. Also, very much a ball hawk team. 6 INTs also. Patton's got 2. A handful of guys like Williams, Trey Bell, they've got 1 in there.
And then Cooper.
Yeah, and Cooper. He's looked great as well in the season. Jeremiah Cooper, that is. But I
Yeah.
mean, this is a well-rounded team from top to bottom, man, on offense and defense for Iowa State, which is why they're in the position they're in, why they're in the ranking they're in, and why they've consistently got it done all this season. But let's flip the page here. Let's talk about Cincinnati. And honestly, man, we are 3 points away basically on this season from saying that the Bearcats would be undefeated. If it wasn't for that 20-17 opening day loss to Nebraska, they've pulled out every win since. Like I said, they're on a hot streak. Like I said, they've won 3 in a row. Has Cincinnati. So they are building some momentum. You're at home. Let's talk about these Bearcats. Let's talk about their offense first and foremost, what you like overall with Cincinnati. And then we'll talk about defense here in a minute. But let's just focus in on the offense. What do you like there? We saw they put up 34, 37, 70. So, I mean, really, Nebraska was the only one that was able to shut them down. Do you think Iowa State can get that done this week?
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they contain and what game plan they bring for Brandon Sorsby, because I mean that dude was balling. He impressed me as I was starting to watch film. I was like, okay, he wasn't someone on my radar initially, and so as I'm kind of watching, I mean, dude putting out there. I mean, he's got 10-1 interception on the season, so he takes care of the football. He's got over 1,000 yards. So I mean, I was very impressed by him, distributing the football. And then I want to see what was his wide receiver. It was it Cyrus Allen? Yeah, that's his leading wide receiver. He's got 5 TDs on the season, and so I'm like, they are not afraid to go over the top of you, and they do it quite frequently. And that's kind of that's what kept them in the game back and forth with it was Houston last week, right? I'm trying to remember who they played.
Yes, I believe so. Give me just 1 second here. I can pull up their schedule as I kind of navigate through all my tabs I've got open.
No, yeah,
they beat Kansas last week, 37-34.
Kansas, that's right. But it was a shootout. It was who ended up having the ball at the end. They scored, I think, with like roughly 30 seconds left. But again, I was super impressed by Sorsby. I mean, he's even a viable threat rushing as well. He's got 4 TDs on the ground with that 10-1 interception ratio. So yeah, for someone not on my radar, I came away going, dang, all right, that dude can ball. And then one thing that kind of stuck out to me, they need to change this, especially if they're going to keep up with Iowa State. They have no picks on the season. I had to double check that when I saw that, because I'm like, who's their interception leader? And then I realized they haven't got it. They got a couple pass breakups, but I'm like, you can't be not turning over the ball and winning ranked teams like Iowa State. So that has to change if they're going to have a shot in this game. But I mean, if their defense shows up and at least get you, doesn't make it like I said, just a turnstile type game. I definitely Cincinnati's got the offense to go back and forth as far as the shootout goes. That's where I lean to who's winning this game, is I think Iowa State's defense does show up. But like I said, both offenses are quite explosive. So I'm excited for this one because it's got the potential to be, a defensive bout or high scoring offense.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's the word there for this game. It has really good potential for this one. Like I said, Cincinnati's coming off a big win against Kansas. We'll talk about Kansas here in just a second. But they got a lot of momentum. You're at home. You're against a ranked team in your division. It'd be a great, way to kind of turn your season not around, but really kind of kick it in the high gear where they're at, and really kind of say, all right, we're kind of moving up the power rankings here. Cincinnati not ranked at the moment, but we know that Iowa State has put up some good work. We talked about them. For me, I'll give my final prediction first. I'll still go with the Cyclones in this one, Brandon, but I think this is going to be another nail biter. I want this one to be. So for me, I'm going to go 27-24 in favor of the Cyclones. I think the Bearcats going to put up a great game. Like you said, I just think you brought it up. You nailed it on the head. They have not got an interception on the year. That is a red flag for me. 5 weeks into the season. Like I said, pass defense, great, but you got to pull it away. You got to be able to get turnovers, especially
Need a
team against Iowa State of their nature.
Right. No, right. I agree 100%. I'm with you the same way. Iowa State. but I got them going 38-31. I do kind of think this is going to be a shootout. The way Cincinnati's playing, their offense, I mean, they are not afraid to just trade shots with you and hope they. I mean, at least based on the Kansas game for sure, they'll just go blow for blow with you and hope they land the last ball at the end. They got the offense to do it.
They do, but like I said, this is going to be a 12 o'clock kick in Cincy. Looking forward to this one. All right, Brandon, final game here. We've been talking about them, talking about the Kansas Jayhawks. They're going to be taking on the UCF Knights. Both teams coming off losses last week and hoping that they can, or lost in their last games, and they're hoping they can get back on track here. We know that Kansas suffered their losses, we mentioned last week, to Cincinnati, 37-34. As for the Knights of UCF, they lost their last game to Kansas State, 34-20 in that one. That was their first loss of the season. UCF 3-1 on the year. Meanwhile, for Kansas, they are 3-2. Let's talk about the Jayhawks first and foremost. We just talked about the Cincinnati game. What went wrong for Kansas in the end? Because it looked like they were right there at the doorstep, about to win a ball game, and they just couldn't hold on late. Like I said, a touchdown with less than 30 seconds left in the ball game kind of sealed their fate, unfortunately.
Yeah, lack of lack of a defensive stop that they needed when they needed it. That was kind of what went wrong. They needed that last stop, couldn't quite get it, and then almost like so the way that game went, I even said it to my brother. You kind of should have got the feel of the game of, okay, my defense isn't stopping them, their defense isn't stopping us. So when they scored, I believe it was on, I got to double check if it was first or second because it changed my game approach, but they left Cincinnati 1 minute and 45 seconds left, and a timeout when they scored. And they scored, I want to say they scored on first down. It was a good play and you want to score, but in that level of game, when you realize the way it's going back and forth, you got to run two, like, gimme runs up the middle to eat their last timeout. And because if it was on first, then you got to run. That should have been a run, and then second should have been a run to run the clock, and then third down's like your best play that you got to have it score. But that's how you run the clock down and win in a shootout. When, like I said, based on how that game had gone, there is no way you're like, oh, I've got faith that my defense is going to stop. It was just more so, can I leave enough time on the clock that they don't have enough time to get down the field? And that's exactly what happened. Is they scored, and it was 1:45 left, and Cincinnati went right down the field and scored. So they needed defense to show up, because their offense is. But Jalen Daniels at 16-2, that's his team. That's insane. Like dude is balling, and I'm like, how is he? How are they not undefeated in top team? And it's the lack thereof of their defense. It's because that they're scoring 40 points, but they're probably averaging giving up 42 type thing. So bad recipe there. Emmanuel Henderson Jr., that dude's bad. He took that one for like 90 something yards, and I was just like, yeah, they're explosive on offense. So it really comes down to, like they said, they're lacking on defense, and I just think it's key playmakers to like get you off the field. Like they're making it too easy for teams to put drives together, and that's where it resulted in a shootout with Cincinnati. I didn't look at their other couple, but I feel like all their games have been pretty high scoring, haven't they?
For Kansas,
yeah,
right. Yeah. For Kansas, they've had some good showings. We mentioned put up 34 last week, but they beat West Virginia 41-10. They lost to Missouri 42-31, and then you beat Wagner 46-7, Fresno State 31-7. So their lowest scoring game of the year was actually last week when they fully put up 34. Or excuse me, against Missouri when they put up 31. But if that's my low, I'll take it. I'll take it any day.
But what's their defense giving up? And I guess so far key games are in those losses. What are they giving up? It sounds like more than 40. So there's your answer.
And like you mentioned, I want to talk about Jalen Daniels real quick. He's got, like you mentioned, he's 16-2 on the year, which is insane. He's a fifth-year senior, so he ain't got any more chances. He's got to go after this, and he's making a name for himself kind of early,
Yeah.
midway through the year about one of the top quarterbacks coming out of this year's draft. I say that because Brandon last year he had 18 touchdowns on the year. He's already got 16. So he also had 12 picks last year, I believe. He's only have 2 on the year, so he's cut down on that. Passing completion percentage way up. He looks like a brand new man. Honestly, he looks razor sharp this year. And like I said, it's unfortunate for Kansas because they have dropped 2 of their last 3. And to me, it's is it which Kansas defense we're going to get, because you held West Virginia 41-10. But we talked about West Virginia. They are last in the Big 12 in terms of just their record. You give up 10 points, great, but then you come back and you give up 37 against Cincinnati. So are they going to be kind of on top of things, or are they just going to give up points and just kind of hope that, like I said, it's going to be just more of that shootout with Jalen and the rest of the company there at Kansas? But they, like I said, that he is your main focal point on offense, with the Jayhawks, who are 3-2 on the year. You need guys, you need LaShawn Williams, the running back, stepping up a little bit more. Yes, all right, he's got 38 carries, right, for 245 yards, averages 6.4 yards per carry, two touchdowns. So, I mean, I feel like just keep him rolling too. Give him maybe a couple more carries, especially maybe later in the game if you're close. That way, you give Jalen time to breathe, time to relax. Before the hopeful close game comes to an end. But you mentioned Emmanuel Henderson Jr., great receiver they got out there, a really good ball player. They got other guys, of course, growing their tight end, reliable target, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, Jalen, I think 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys have receiving touchdowns on the year. So, he's spreading the ball around also. And like I said, the defense, you just gotta. They have 14 sacks on the year, which is a really good number. Also, let's see, you got 14 sacks. You've got 3 interceptions. I want to see that go a little bit up, but thank you. Yeah, Levi Harris, just put in great work. Obviously, Leroy Harris, 3.5 sacks on the year. DJ Withers with 2. Kamara and Latham both got a sack and a half to their name. So, I mean, they've got good pieces, Brandon. It's just, to me, it just feels like the secondary or really just the unit as a whole just isn't up to par.
Yeah, that's what I say. Lacking playmakers on the back end is kind of what I was thinking. Because they are able to get home on sacks, that's where they get a sack on second and whatever, and then then are their cornerbacks giving up 3rd and long. Right. Seemed like a lot of that was kind of happening. It was, as long as we attempted the pass, and we're willing to try for the line, it seemed like they got it a lot of the time. So that's where you want your defense to show up. I was thinking, as you mentioned it, talking about Jalen Daniels just one more time, he kind of reminds me of Jaden Daniels and the transition from A-State to LSU. Like his leap this year has been phenomenal. If his defense was backing him right now, he'd probably be getting a lot more credit for how good he's playing. Because he's among the tops of quarterback play right now, at least individually.
Speaking of quarterback play, let's talk about UCF and the Knights. Kind of polar opposites, man, when you look at quarterback play. Jalen Daniels, like I said, 16 touchdowns. Flip over to UCF. As a team, they only have 4.
Yeah, I was like, do they throw the ball?
I mean, honestly, when you look at these numbers on the year, right, on the season, there's their main quarterback, Taven Jackson, 66 completions, 101 attempts, 809 yards, 65% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT, 6 sacks. Not ideal, but the running game is their kind of bread and butter. 136 carries as a unit, 812 yards. They average 6 yards per carry. They do have 11 touchdowns on the ground, thanks in part to Miles Montgomery and Jaden Nix, as well as Ja'Curry Brown, another is a quarterback who can get some work in there as well. And Taven Jackson, not afraid to run as well. 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I say quarterback
definitely run heavy
too. Yep.
But I mean, just the offense. Like so, we brought up the quarterback play, the running game. Your top receivers are going to be Dwayne Thomas Jr. and DJ Black. Those are the only 2 guys that have over 10 receptions on the year, which is still, I mean, we're at this point in the season, it's just kind of hard to believe. So I mean, and then
Which,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, I was say Black's averaging what was it, 18? Yeah, 18 yards a
Yeah,
catch right now. Like,
yeah,
I don't know
he's doing
why
great
you're
right now.
not trying to feature him in get him more touches in a game plan
Right.
with those type of numbers. But also why they keep it on the ground is Jaden Dixon's averaging 14 yards a carry.
Right.
So when you've got a running back on the ground that's averaging what would be a good wide receiver, per average number, I guess that's understandably so there.
No, I
Um,
mean, in his longest run on the year, by the way, 87 yards. So that shows you the explosiveness, the big
yeah.
play potential. To
Hmm.
bust it for 87, it's special to watch that, man. So that's what you got to hope for UCF. Let's talk about the defense, though. We haven't mentioned the defense. Like I said, they suffered their first loss of the year last week in the previous game. But overall, as a team, right, you've got 8 sacks on the year, you've got 5 interceptions, so you have some good pieces there, but it hasn't worked out completely yet. Your best in terms of getting to the quarterback, Malachi Lawrence and Sear Edwards, Najee
Yep.
Kelly right there, Lewis Carter as well. And then you got a handful of guys that just got 1 pick on the year, but they're just kind of sharing the love over there. But what do you like about their defense and maybe what they can do to change up what went wrong in their loss to Kansas State and kind of get back on track here potentially against Kansas?
Well, you kind of mentioned it. I wrote down as well Malachi Lawrence. He's their sack leader, so you're going to need him to have a big game, especially to try and slow down what Jalen Daniels is doing offensively right now. And then really we're going to see, because I didn't see anybody sticking out to me as far as super playmaker on the back end, and their secondary is about to be tested because
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels is going to stretch the field. He's going to throw it. He's also going to test their linebackers as far as if they can spy up and keep him contained in the pocket. But yeah, watching his throwing ability, that we're going to see UCF if they can hold up. So if they can't, I can kind of see this getting away. But if not, I can see them, like I said, again, high scoring. But both so far have lacked defense, and so I can kind of see, I could see it having trouble because I mean Kansas hasn't shown that they're great in the run game. That's I mean Cincy was they took it right down there on the field and then it was down there on the 2 and they literally just let him run right in. It wasn't even a fancy play as a run. I almost hate it when runs up the middle work because then it's like coaches think that that's like a viable play
Mm-hmm.
in like key situations and it's like no, let's get a little creative. But
Let's change it up a little
um
bit, yeah.
yeah, but that's where, like I said, so far, I don't see a lot of defense between both of these teams. So I'm looking for someone to step up in the secondary for UCF.
All right, final prediction time. Last game of the day for me. I'm going to go Kansas. Roll into this one. I love their offense too much. UCF, like I said, got some good pieces, but the offensive production, man, it's head and shoulders where Kansas is at. So
Mm-hmm.
give me the Jayhawks in this one. I'll go big score. Let's go 37 for Kansas, and I'll go for UCF. I'll give them 17. How about that? I'll give them 17 to right there to just get some more points on the board. Maybe a couple passing touchdowns, get 2 of them on the board, and increase your total year. Brandon, let's get your final thoughts here and your final prediction for our last game of the day.
I'm kind of right there in the same boat with you. I actually went 38-20.
All right, man.
38-20 Kansas. Like I said, I think their offense is going to be too much for UCF to keep up with, unless
Yep.
all of a sudden they find a deep threat.
All of a sudden, and like this is going to be a 7:30 p.m. kick on this one. This is going to be at UCF out there in Florida. It's going to be on ESPN too. So if you do have that channel, you are going to be able to watch this game. So I know we'll have it tuned in here once we, once we get a little bit of time, watch a little bit of nighttime football, Big 12 action, and watch Jalen Daniels and company probably put up a good bit of points, but that could also not be the case. That's for you to come in here and tell us in our comment section on Facebook and on YouTube. Did we get them right? Are you going to agree with our picks? Do you think we all, that Brandon's going to go perfect 4-0 again this week? Or do you have a difference of opinion? Who's going to be a top playmaker? Is your team going to win if we didn't cover your team? If you want us to next week, also put that in the comments as well. We'll cover your team next week and talk about their upcoming matchups as well. But this is our second episode here of our Big 12 weekly roundup, and of course, doing some game previews as well with Brandon Larson. Appreciate you, man, coming on the show as always and talking
Happy to
some
be
Big
here.
12 football, man. It's always a fun time. I've been your host and producer for today's show, Logan Landers. Guys, stay tuned because in just a couple minutes, we have a great Tennessee Volunteers recap and history special with one and only Joey Klingscale. So, till then, we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. For Brandon Larson, I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Take it easy, guys. We'll see you again on another live episode.